Our kindergarten was sued by a father who claimed his daughter had mental trauma because we didn't intervene fast enough when she was left alone during nap time. He said she developed nightmares, refused to sleep, and screamed at the sight of blankets. The footage showed her crying alone for 14 minutes before a teacher returned. We were told to settle, but I couldn't let it go because that same father pulled me aside months before, asking about our security system and whether staff take breaks during naps. So I checked past reports and realized he'd filed lawsuits against 2 other daycares in different states with the exact same story. Word for word. I reported it to the lawyers. He disappeared before the next hearing. The court later found out he'd been using fake names for his daughter and jumping states with no real custody papers. I've been running Little Sprouts Kindergarten for 6 years, and let me tell you, nothing prepares you for the chaos of a lawsuit like this one. Our small, family-oriented daycare in a quiet Midwestern town had always been a haven. Brightly colored walls, kids giggling over finger paints, and parents who trusted us with their little ones. That trust was everything to me. I'd built this place from the ground up, pouring every dime I had into making it safe and welcoming. So when a father named David Kessler walked into my office with a lawyer and a stack of legal papers, claiming we'd traumatized his 5-year-old daughter Lily, I felt like the ground had been yanked out from under me. It started on a crisp October morning. I was in the middle of helping a new kid tie his shoes when my assistant Sarah poked her head in, looking pale. "There's a guy here," she whispered. "Says he's suing us. He's got a lawyer." My stomach dropped, but I plastered on a calm smile and told her to send them to my office. David Kessler was tall, wiry, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. The toys on the shelf, the security camera blinking in the corner, even the way I sat at my desk. His lawyer, a slick guy in a cheap suit named Greg Parsons, did most of the talking. They claimed Lily had been left alone during nap time for 14 minutes, crying hysterically, and that it caused her severe mental trauma. According to them, she now had nightmares, refused to sleep, and screamed at the sight of blankets. They had a doctor's note, a therapist's report, and a demand for $150,000 to settle. I was floored. We had strict protocols. Staff always monitored nap time, and our cameras recorded everything. I asked to see the evidence. Parsons slid a USB drive across my desk with a smug look. "It's all there," he said. "Your staff failed her." I promised to review it and get back to them, but my gut was screaming that something wasn't right. David barely spoke, just stared at me with this cold, unblinking gaze that made my skin crawl. I couldn't shake the feeling I'd seen him before. That night, I stayed late, hunched over my laptop, watching the footage. It was from a Wednesday 3 weeks prior, during nap time in the blue room. The video showed Lily lying on her mat, tossing and turning, then sitting up and crying softly. The timestamp confirmed she was alone for exactly 14 minutes before Miss Clara, one of our best teachers, returned and comforted her. I rewound and watched again. Clara had stepped out, likely for a bathroom break, which we allowed in pairs to ensure coverage, but her partner, Miss Jenna, was supposed to be there. Jenna had called in sick that day, and we'd been short-staffed. My heart sank. It was a mistake, no question, but 14 minutes? Severe trauma? Screaming at blankets? It felt like a stretch. I called an emergency staff meeting the next morning. Clara was in tears, swearing she'd only been gone a few minutes. "I'd never leave a kid alone like that on purpose," she said, wringing her hands. The team was rattled. Nobody wants to think they've hurt a child. I told them we'd fight it, but our insurance company had other ideas. By noon, I got a call from our rep, Linda. "Settle," she said flatly. "The footage doesn't look good, and a jury might eat you alive. Cut a check and move on." I argued that $150,000 would cripple us. Tuition barely covered our costs as it was. Linda didn't budge. "You left a kid alone. That's negligence. Pay up or risk losing everything." I couldn't sleep that night. David's face kept flashing in my mind, and then it hit me. 5 months earlier, during a parent-teacher conference, he'd pulled me aside after dropping Lily off. He'd asked weirdly specific questions about our security system. How long do the cameras keep footage? Do they record audio? Do staff take breaks during naps? I'd brushed it off as a dad being overprotective, but now it felt sinister. Why was he so curious about nap time? Why the cameras? I started digging. First, I pulled Lily's enrollment file. Everything seemed normal. Emergency contacts, medical forms, a copy of David's ID. But something nagged at me. I cross-checked our parent database and noticed David had only been enrolled for 6 months, claiming he'd moved from out of state. No prior daycare history was listed, which was odd. Most parents volunteered that info. I called the elementary school listed on Lily's forms to verify her records. The secretary paused, then said, "We don't have a Lily Kessler enrolled here." My pulse quickened. Maybe it was a mix-up. I asked about David Kessler. "Never heard of him," she said. I spent the next few hours scouring the internet. A quick search for David Kessler lawsuit daycare turned up nothing, but when I tweaked it to daycare lawsuit trauma, I hit pay dirt. A news article from 2 years ago in Oregon described a father, Daniel Kendrick, suing a daycare for neglecting his daughter during nap time, causing emotional distress. The details were eerily familiar. A girl left alone for 15 minutes, nightmares, fear of blankets, a $120,000 demand. The daycare settled. Another article from Nevada a year later mentioned a David Kenner pulling the same stunt. Same story, same symptoms, same settlement. Both articles included grainy photos of the father. Same wiry build, same sharp eyes. It was him. My hands shook as I printed the articles. This wasn't a grieving dad. This was a con artist. I called our lawyer Rachel at 2 a.m., barely coherent. "He's done this before," I blurted. "Same story, different names. We can't settle." Rachel was skeptical, but agreed to look into it. She warned me not to confront David until we had more proof. "If he's a scammer, he'll bolt," she said. "We need to build a case." The next day, I pulled every report we had on Lily. Her attendance was spotty, absent half the time, always with vague excuses from David about family issues. I checked the camera logs from the past 6 months. David always dropped her off and picked her up himself, never letting Lily's mom or anyone else show up. Red flag. I also noticed he'd linger near the nap room, sometimes peeking in during drop-off, like he was scoping it out. I started cross-referencing his ID with public records. The address he gave was a rental, leased under a different name, Daniel Kendrick, same guy from the Oregon article. I was in too deep now. I contacted the Oregon Daycare from the article, posing as a concerned parent. The director was hesitant, but eventually spilled. That guy cleaned us out, settled for $80,000, then vanished. His daughter's name wasn't even real. I asked about the girl. Sweet kid, but quiet, looked scared of him sometimes. My stomach churned. Was Lily even his daughter? By the time I met with Rachel again, I had a folder thick with evidence. The articles, the mismatched IDs, the rental records. She was floored. This is fraud, she said. We need to take this to the police, but we have to be careful. If he's jumping states, he's probably got an exit plan. We filed a report with the local PD, who escalated it to a detective specializing in fraud. They told us to sit tight and not tip David off. Easier said than done. Every day, I expected another legal bomb to drop. A week later, David and his lawyer requested another meeting. I played dumb, agreeing to meet at a coffee shop. Parsons did the talking again, upping the settlement demand to $200,000. We have new evidence, he said, smirking. Lily's therapist says her condition's worsening. David just sat there, staring at me like he could see through me. I nodded, said we were considering the offer, and left. My hands were clammy the whole time. I knew we were close to catching him, but I also knew he was dangerous. That night, I got a call from the detective. They'd run David's ID through a national database. No record of a David Kessler matching his description. The photo on his license was linked to 3 other aliases, Daniel Kendrick, David Kenner, and a third name, Derek Kane, all tied to similar lawsuits. Worse, there was no record of a Lily Kessler anywhere. No birth certificate, no custody papers. The detective's voice was grim. We think she might be a foster kid or worse, or working on a warrant. I couldn't shake the image of Lily's face. Small, pale, always clinging to her stuffed bunny during drop-off. Was she part of his scam? Or was she a victim too? I stayed up all night, replaying every interaction with David. The way he'd asked about nap breaks, the way he'd watched the cameras, it was planned. He'd set us up, knowing we'd slip eventually. And we had. The next morning, I got to the kindergarten early, half expecting David to show up with Lily. He didn't. I checked the cameras, empty. By noon, Rachel called with bad news. David and Parsons had missed their court hearing. Their office was cleared out, phones disconnected, he'd bolted. The detective confirmed it later that day. The rental was empty, no trace of David or Lily. My heart sank. We'd been so close, but he'd slipped through our fingers. Worse, I couldn't stop thinking about Lily. Where was she now? Was she safe? The police expanded their search, contacting daycares in neighboring states with warnings about David's aliases. Rachel pushed to have the lawsuit thrown out, citing fraud. The judge was sympathetic, but needed more evidence to dismiss it entirely. I felt like I was drowning. Our insurance was still pushing to settle, parents were starting to whisper about the lawsuit, and enrollment was dropping. I couldn't let this destroy everything I'd built, but I also couldn't stop worrying about Lily. Then, 2 weeks later, I got an email from an unknown address. No subject, just a single line. Check the storage unit at 1437 Maple Drive. My blood ran cold. I forwarded it to the detective, who got a warrant to search the unit. What they found changed everything. The storage unit at 1437 Maple Drive was registered under one of David's aliases, Derek Kane. When the detective called me after the search, his voice was tight. "You need to see this," he said. "Meet me at the station." I dropped everything, my heart pounding as I drove across town. The police station was buzzing when I arrived, officers moving quickly, phones ringing off the hook. The detective, a gruff guy named Martinez, led me to a small evidence room. On the table were stacks of files, a laptop, and a box labeled Kane Property. He didn't waste time. We found enough to tie Kessler, or whatever his real name is, to at least 5 daycare scams across 3 states. But it's worse than we thought. He opened the box, revealing a pile of forged documents, birth certificates, custody papers, medical records, all with different names for Lily and David. There were photos too. Lily with different hair colors, different outfits, always clutching that same stuffed bunny. My stomach twisted. "Is she even his kid?" I asked. Martinez shook his head. "We don't know. No record of her exists in any state database. She's a ghost." The laptop had emails between David and Parsons, detailing their playbook. Enroll a kid, stage a negligence incident, sue, settle, vanish. They'd targeted small daycares like mine, knowing we couldn't afford long legal battles. The storage unit also held burner phones, wads of cash, and a notebook with names of other daycares. Some crossed out, some circled. Little Sprouts was on the list, with a note, "Short-staffed Wednesdays, nap time week." I felt sick. He'd been casing us from day one, exploiting our one bad day. But the worst part, the notebook had an address scribbled in the margin, a motel 20 miles outside town. Martinez was already moving. "We're raiding it tonight," he said. "Stay out of it, but I'll keep you updated." I nodded, but my mind was racing. I couldn't just sit there. Lily was out there, and if she wasn't his daughter, what was he doing with her? I drove back to the kindergarten, pulling Sarah and Clara into my office. "We need to go through every frame of footage we have," I told them. "Anything with David or Lily. Look for patterns, anything we missed." We spent hours scrubbing through months of security tapes. David was meticulous, always positioning himself near cameras, like he wanted to be seen. But Lily? She was different. In every clip, she looked nervous, her eyes darting to David before she'd speak. In one video, during pickup, she flinched when he grabbed her arm too tightly. Clara noticed it first. "That's not normal," she whispered. "She's scared of him." We also found footage of David lingering outside the nap room weeks before the incident, timing how long teachers were gone. He'd planned every second. By midnight, Martinez called. The motel raid was a bust. David and Lily were gone, but they'd left behind clothes, a half-eaten meal, and another fake ID. "He's spooked," Martinez said. "Someone tipped him off." I froze. knows? The email about the storage unit, had David sent it himself to throw us off, or was someone else watching? I didn't sleep that night, haunted by Lily's face and the thought that we'd lost our chance to help her. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, low and hurried. Stop looking for him. You don't know what he's capable of. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I reported it to Martinez, who traced the call to a burner phone bought at a gas station 2 towns over. He's still close, Martinez said. He's not done with you. That sent a chill down my spine. Why me? Why little sprouts? I doubled security, installing new cameras and hiring a guard for drop-off and pickup. Parents were starting to ask questions. Word of the lawsuit had leaked, and some were pulling their kids out. I held a meeting, promising transparency without spilling too much. We're cooperating with the police, I said. Your kids are safe. Most parents nodded, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. Enrollment was down 20%, and our insurance was still pushing to settle. You're bleeding money, Linda snapped over the phone. This is your fault for dragging it out. I couldn't let it go. Not with Lily out there. Not with David still circling. I started digging deeper, reaching out to the Nevada Daycare from the second article. Their director, a woman named Ellen, was cagey at first but opened up when I sent her David's photo. That's him, she confirmed. He called himself David Kenner. Same story. Kid left alone, trauma, lawsuit. We settled for $60,000. He was gone the next day. She paused. The girl, though, she didn't seem right. Too quiet, like she was coached. I asked if she'd seen anything suspicious. Yeah, Ellen said. He always paid in cash, and once, I saw him arguing with a woman outside. She looked scared, kept looking at the girl like she wanted to grab her and run. A woman. Was she the one who called me? I shared everything with Martinez, who was now working with the FBI. David's pattern was clear. He'd use a kid, maybe not even his, to scam daycares, then disappear. But the woman was a new piece of the puzzle. Martinez pulled traffic cam footage from the motel and found grainy images of a woman with David and Lily the night before the raid. She was tall, with dark hair pulled back, and she kept her distance from David, holding Lily's hand tightly. Could be a partner, Martinez said, or another victim. We're running facial recognition. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure was crushing. The lawsuit was still active, with Parsons's firm filing motions to keep it alive despite David's disappearance. Rachel suspected Parsons was in on the scam, but we had no proof. Meanwhile, I was burning through savings to keep the kindergarten afloat. Parents were spooked, and I couldn't blame them. Every time I saw a kidnap in the blue room, I thought of Lily crying alone. Had we failed her? Or was it all staged? I started second-guessing every decision, every hire, every protocol. Then, one rainy afternoon, Sarah burst into my office, holding a crumpled note. A parent found this in the parking lot, she said, handing it to me. It was written in shaky handwriting. Lily's not his. Check St. Mary's Hospital, 2019. My heart stopped. St. Mary's was a local hospital, 10 miles away. I called Martinez, who got a warrant to pull records. What they found was a bombshell. In 2019, a woman named Laura Bennett had given birth to a girl at St. Mary's. No father was listed, but the mother's description matched the woman from the motel footage. The girl's name? Emily. No last name. The records ended there. Laura had checked out after 2 days. No forwarding address. Martinez dug deeper, finding a missing persons report for Laura Bennett from 2020, filed in Ohio. She'd vanished with her daughter Emily after a custody dispute with an unnamed partner. The report included a photo of a baby girl with a stuffed bunny. It was Lily. I felt like I'd been punched. Emily wasn't David's daughter. He'd taken her, maybe coerced Laura into helping him, and was using her for his scams. But why? And where were they now? I couldn't sit still. Against Martinez's advice, I drove to St. Mary's, asking questions about Laura Bennett. The staff stonewalled me. Patient confidentiality. But a nurse pulled me aside in the parking lot. I remember her, she whispered. She was terrified, kept saying someone was after her. She left in a hurry. I asked about the father. No father, the nurse said. But there was a guy who came looking for her a week later. Tall, thin, creepy eyes, asked too many questions. It was David. I relayed everything to Martinez, who was now treating this as a kidnapping case. The FBI issued an alert for Laura and Emily, using the motel footage to track their last known location. I felt a flicker of hope, but it was drowned out by dread. David was always one step ahead, and now he knew we were onto him. The kindergarten was barely hanging on. Another parent pulled their kid that week, citing safety concerns. I was losing everything, but I couldn't stop. Not until I knew Lily was safe. Late one night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You're making a mistake. Drop it or you'll regret it. Attached was a photo of the kindergarten's front door, taken hours earlier. My blood ran cold. I called Martinez, who stationed an officer outside my house. He's desperate, Martinez said. That makes him dangerous. I locked every door, checked every window, and barely slept, clutching a baseball bat. The next morning, I found a stuffed bunny on my porch. Lily's bunny, its ear torn off. A note was pinned to it. Last warning. I stared at the torn bunny on my porch, the note flapping in the morning breeze. Last warning. My hands shook as I bagged it for Martinez, who arrived within the hour. He's escalating, he said, his face grim. This isn't just about money anymore. The bunny was Lily's. Emily's, same faded pink fur, same lopsided ears I'd seen her clutch in every drop-off video. I couldn't shake the image of her small hands holding it, or the thought that David was using it to send a message. Martinez stationed a patrol car outside the kindergarten in my house, but it didn't ease the dread gnawing at me. David was out there, watching, and he knew where I lived. I barely made it through the day at Little Sprouts. Parents were pulling kids left and right. Enrollment was down 35% now, and whispers about the lawsuit were spreading like wildfire. I overheard 2 moms in the parking lot. If they can't watch a kid during nap time, how can we trust them? I wanted to scream that it was a setup, that David wasn't who he said he was, but Rachel had warned me to keep quiet. One wrong move, and he'll use it against you in court, she'd said. So I smiled, reassured parents, and died a little inside every time another one left. Martinez called that afternoon with an update. The FBI had traced the burner phone from the threatening text Next, to a convenience store 30 miles away, bought with cash the day before. Security footage showed a man in a hoodie, same wiry build as David, paying at the counter. He's still in the area, Martinez said. We're closing in, but he's slippery. They'd also found a lead on Laura Bennett. A shelter in Ohio reported a woman matching her description staying there in 2020, just before the missing persons report. She'd told staff she was running from an abusive ex who'd threatened to take her daughter. The ex's description matched David. Tall, thin, sharp eyes. We think he's been controlling her for years, Martinez said, maybe forcing her to help with the scams. That night, I couldn't stay home. The bunny, the note, the photo of my front door. It was too much. I drove to the kindergarten, figuring I'd sleep on the couch in my office. Safer there, with cameras and alarms. But as I unlocked the door, I noticed it was already ajar. My heart stopped. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911, but something made me push the door open. The lights were off, but I heard a faint rustle from the blue room. Against every instinct, I crept toward it, clutching a flashlight from my bag. The nap mats were scattered, and in the corner, barely visible in the dark, was a figure. Small, curled up, clutching a blanket. Lily? I whispered. The figure flinched, and a woman's voice hissed, "Don't move." It was Laura. She stepped into the beam of my flashlight, her face gaunt, eyes wide with panic. Emily was behind her, asleep on a mat, her bunny missing its ear. "Please," Laura whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't call the police. He'll find us." I lowered the flashlight, my mind racing. "Laura, I know who he is. We're trying to stop him." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You don't understand. He knows everything. He's always watching." I convinced her to come to my office, promising I wouldn't call anyone yet. She was trembling, clutching Emily's hand so tightly the girl whimpered in her sleep. Over the next hour, Laura spilled a story that made my blood run cold. David, whose real name, she claimed, was Derek Carson, had been her boyfriend 6 years ago. He was charming at first, but after Emily was born, he turned controlling, isolating her from friends and family. When she tried to leave, he took Emily and disappeared for weeks. She tracked them down, but he threatened to hurt Emily if she didn't do what he said. That's when the daycare scams started. He'd force Laura to pose as a concerned mom, enroll Emily under fake names, and stage incidents to sue. "He's done it 7 times, she said. "I tried to run, but he always finds us." I asked why she was here now. "He left us at the motel 2 days ago," she said. "Said he had to handle something. I saw my chance and took Emily. This was the only place I knew he wouldn't look." I realized the email about the storage unit must have come from her, a desperate attempt to expose him. "But why the kindergarten?" "I thought you'd help," she said softly. "You were kind to Emily. She talked about you." My heart broke. This whole time, I'd been focused on saving my business, but Emily was the real victim. I called Martinez, despite Laura's protests. "We need protection," I told him. "She's here, with the girl." He arrived with 2 officers, and Laura nearly bolted when she saw them. It took 20 minutes to calm her down. They took her and Emily to a safe house, promising round-the-clock security. Martinez pulled me aside. "This is huge," he said. "Laura's testimony could bury him, but we need to find him before he figures out she's talking." I handed over the bunny and the note, which Martinez bagged as evidence. "He's unraveling," he said. "That's when he'll make a mistake." The next week was a blur. Laura and Emily were under protective custody, and the FBI was building a case against David Derek. They found more evidence in the storage unit, a fake passport for Emily under another name, plane tickets to Canada, and a ledger detailing payouts from past scams, over $400,000 in 3 years. But David was still a ghost. The lawsuit against Little Sprouts was falling apart. Parsons stopped showing up to hearings, and Rachel filed a motion to dismiss based on fraud. The judge was leaning our way, but the damage was done. We were down to 40 kids, and I had to let go of 2 teachers to cover costs. Clara was a wreck, blaming herself for the nap incident. I tried to reassure her, but I was barely holding it together myself. Then one morning, I got a package in the mail. No return address, just my name scrawled in black marker. Inside was a USB drive and a note. "You should have settled." My hands went cold. I called Martinez, who told me to bring it to the station unopened. Forensics pulled a video from the drive. It was grainy, shot from a distance, showing the kindergarten's playground at night. Someone, David, I was sure, was walking the perimeter, testing the gate. The timestamp was 2 nights ago. "He's taunting us," Martinez said. "He knows we're close." They dusted the USB for prints, but found none. The note was clean too. David was careful, but he was getting bolder. I couldn't keep this from the staff anymore. I called a meeting, laying out everything. David's scams, Laura's story, the threats. Sarah gasped when I mentioned the bunny. "That's why Emily was so attached to it," she said. "It was her only constant." Clara started crying again, and I felt like I was failing them all. "We're not giving up," I told them. "The police are close, and we're getting new locks, better cameras. We're fighting this." But privately, I was terrified. What if David came back? What if he went after Laura or Emily? A few days later, Martinez called with a breakthrough. A gas station clerk 50 miles away recognized David from the FBI alert. He'd bought a pack of cigarettes and a prepaid phone, paying with a credit card under Derek Carson. The card was linked to a P.O. box in a nearby town. Martinez and the FBI raided it, finding letters addressed to 3 new aliases and a lease for a cabin in the woods, 80 miles north. "We're moving on it tonight," Martinez said. "Stay put. If he's there, this ends." I tried to focus on work, but my mind was at that cabin. Was David there, plotting his next move? Was he alone? I kept picturing Emily's face, her small hands clutching that bunny. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Laura's safe house number. He called me. He knows where we are. I called Martinez immediately, but his line was busy. Panic set in. I grabbed my keys, ready to drive to the safe house. But as I stepped outside, I saw headlights in the parking lot. A car idled at the curb, engine running. I froze, my hand on my phone, ready to dial 911. The car peeled out before I could get the plate. The car's taillights vanished into the night, leaving me shaking in the kindergarten parking lot. My phone was still in my hand, 911 half dialed, but I hesitated. What if it was nothing? What if it was David? I called Martinez Martinez instead, leaving a frantic voicemail about the car and Laura's text. He knows where we are. I locked myself in my office, checking every camera feed. The kindergarten was quiet, but my nerves were screaming. I kept seeing that bunny, the torn ear, the note. David was closing in, and I felt like a sitting duck. Martinez called back at midnight, his voice clipped but calm. We hit the cabin. He wasn't there, but we found enough to nail him. Laptops, more fake IDs, and a burner phone with calls to Parsons' office. We're tracking him now. He paused. Laura and Emily are safe. The safe house is secure, but her phone was compromised. We're moving them again. I asked about the car I'd seen. Could be him, Martinez admitted. Or he's messing with you. Stay vigilant. I didn't sleep that night, jumping at every creak, every shadow. The kindergarten, once my pride and joy, felt like a trap. The next morning I found a new email in my inbox. No sender, just a single line. You can't protect them. My blood ran cold. I forwarded it to Martinez, who called within minutes. We got a hit, he said. The email came from a library computer 40 miles away. Security footage shows a guy matching David's description using it an hour ago. We're closing the net. The FBI was now fully involved, coordinating with state police across 3 counties. They'd also frozen Parsons' bank accounts, suspecting he was funneling David's payouts. The lawsuit against Little Sprouts was crumbling. Rachel had filed a counterclaim for fraud, and the judge had postponed all hearings pending the investigation. But David was still out there, and I couldn't shake the feeling he was targeting me. I hired a second security guard and installed motion sensors around the kindergarten. Parents were trickling back, reassured by the extra measures, but we were still hemorrhaging money. I took out a loan to keep us afloat, promising myself it was temporary.
We're surviving this, I told Sarah and Clara, though I wasn't sure I believed it. Clara, still guilt-ridden over the nap incident, threw herself into work, double-checking every protocol. Sarah started a parent newsletter, spinning the lawsuit as a misunderstanding we were resolving. It helped, but the whispers lingered. 3 days later, Martinez called with big news. We got him. My heart leaped. They'd caught David, real name Derek Carson, at a truck stop just over the state line, trying to buy a bus ticket to Canada. He'd been using a new alias, but a clerk recognized him from the FBI alert. When they arrested him, he had a backpack stuffed with cash, fake IDs, and a photo of Emily. He didn't put up a fight, Martinez said, just smirked and asked for his lawyer. Parsons was picked up the same day, charged with conspiracy and fraud. The FBI was combing through their records, linking them to 8 daycare scams totaling over $600,000. Laura and Emily were safe, now in a new safe house under federal protection. Laura agreed to testify against Derek, detailing years of coercion and abuse. She told the FBI he'd kidnapped Emily after their breakup, using her as leverage to force Laura into the scams. The trauma claims were scripted. Derek coached Emily to act scared, even bribing her with candy to cry on cue. The nightmares and blanket phobia were lies, though Laura admitted Emily was genuinely terrified of him. She's a tough kid, Laura said in a recorded statement I watched later, but she needs to be a kid again. The court dismissed the lawsuit against Little Sprouts a week later, citing overwhelming evidence of fraud. Rachel pushed for damages, and we won a small settlement from Parsons' firm, enough to cover legal fees and part of the loan. Enrollment slowly climbed back up as the truth spread. I held a community meeting, laying out the whole story, minus sensitive details about Emily. Parents were shocked but supportive, some even apologizing for doubting us. You fought for that girl, one mom said, hugging me. That's why we trust you. I visited Laura and Emily a month later, after they'd been relocated to a quiet town in another state. The FBI arranged it, keeping their location secret. Laura looked lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Emily ran to me, clutching a new bunny, pink, like the old one, but with both ears intact. Miss Katie, she squealed, hugging my legs. I knelt down, fighting tears. You're safe now, I whispered. Laura thanked me, her voice breaking. You didn't give up, she said. Most people would have. I shook my head. You and Emily did the hard part. Derek's trial was swift. With Laura's testimony, the evidence from the storage unit, and records tying him to multiple scams, he was convicted on 12 counts of fraud, kidnapping, and extortion. He got 15 years, with no parole for at least 10. Parsons took a plea deal, ratting out Derek for a lighter sentence. The FBI recovered most of the stolen money, distributing it to the affected daycares, including ours. It wasn't enough to erase the financial hit, but it helped us rebuild. Little Sprouts bounced back stronger than ever. We implemented new protocols, no staff breaks during naps, triple-checked schedules, and a state-of-the-art security system. Clara and Sarah stepped up, becoming my rock as we rebuilt trust. We started a scholarship fund for kids like Emily, covering tuition for families in need. Parents loved it, and by spring we were at full capacity again, with a waiting list. The local paper ran a story on us, calling Little Sprouts the daycare that fought back. I framed it in my office, a reminder of what we'd survived. Laura and Emily were thriving in their new life. Laura sent me occasional updates through a secure email, always careful not to reveal too much. Emily was in school, making friends, and sleeping through the night. No nightmares, no fear of blankets. She talks about you sometimes, Laura wrote, says you're her hero. I cried reading that, but it was the good kind of tears. One sunny afternoon, as I watched the kids play on our newly upgraded playground, Clara handed me a letter from a parent. It was Emily's handwriting, shaky but clear. Thank you for helping me and Mommy. I love my new bunny. Tucked inside was a drawing of a stick figure girl holding a pink bunny, standing next to a woman with my curly hair. I pinned it to my bulletin board, right next to the article. For the first time in months, I felt whole. The ordeal had nearly broken me, but it also showed me what mattered: protecting kids, fighting for truth, and never backing down. Little Sprouts wasn't just a daycare anymore. It was a promise. And as I watched the kids chase each other, laughing under the spring sun, I knew we'd kept that promise. Emily was safe, Derek was gone, and we were stronger than ever. Sometimes the hardest fights lead to the brightest days.